I'm Alecia McCallum. I'm a Miss Grand Australia National Finalist, and this is my interview with the Pageant Project.
Good evening, everyone. It is Adrian from the Pageant Project with you. My special guest for today is Alecia McCallum, who is a Miss Grand Australia National Finalist. Alecia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, from your biography, I can see that you are a teacher. Did you have the younglings today?
I did. I did have my 5 and 6-year-old kindergarten students today.
And so it's a Friday evening. When you get to a Friday evening, how much do you need the weekend? I'm just curious because as a kindergarten teacher, I've done some teaching. I was studying to be a teacher, didn't follow through. I dealt with a lot of students as a tennis coach, but as a kindergarten teacher, just how much does it take out of you?
It definitely can be quite exhausting by the time you get to the end of the week, depending on how the week has gone, because they are so young. They have their days when they're beautiful and they're happy and all of that. And then they obviously have their days. It's a big, long week, not only for us, but it's such a big week for them. It's long days. So I think we're all ready for the weekend when it comes around, but it definitely gets easier as the year goes on. Term 1 is a lot because they haven't got a whole bunch of skills when they come. So that first term is very exhausting, doing up jackets, packing bags, opening food. Oh, the list just goes on.
I want to ask what a day in the typical life of a kindergarten teacher is. And I ask this, A, because I'm curious, but B, I know a lot of people sort of take teachers for granted, and especially with teaching the young ones, it's like, oh, well, you're just a glorified babysitter. How hard is it? And then when you say how tired you are at the end of the day, they're like, oh, but you get school holidays off. You know, you get this. You only work from 9 to 3, so you shouldn't complain. So I know it to be otherwise because I've worked with kindergarten teachers. But what does a day in the life of a kindergarten teacher look like?
A day in the life, a typical day. I would go to work. I probably get to work around 8, and then just some prep for the day, setting up activities. So when the students come in and the bell goes, I'm ready to go. So that's how I kind of spend my morning. And then the bell will go, the students will come in, we have a story, some fruit break. There's normally lots of helping them with their fruit, helping them get stuff out of their bags, and that's just the beginning. I normally say the same instruction about 10 times, even though we do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will get into some activities. If I've got anything that's cutting and pasting, that is just a whole nother story. And then we will have lunch. During that morning session, though, I probably get asked a lot of times, can I go to the toilet? This person will not share this, just a range of questions. And then they'll go out for lunch, which is great because you get a little bit of peace and quiet unless you are on duty. And then you have to just have it through that period as well. Plus, you also then have to interact with students that are not in your class, and that sometimes has its challenges. And then you will come in, you'll do some more learning, more questions. Can I go to the toilet? This person's taking my things. They're not being nice. Just the list just goes on. And then we'll have recess, and normally that's when I get my break. Do I have a break? I normally eat as I'm prepping more stuff, whether it's tidying stuff up or prepping stuff for the last session of the day or getting organized for the next day. And then they come back in, and then I wave goodbye to them as they go to their parents, and then get ready to see them for another day.
So that sounds exhausting, even listening to it. How many times do you get asked, can I go to the toilet on an average day?
I probably, at least each child will probably ask me at least once throughout the whole day. I have 20 students. We go for whole class toilet trips. We go to the toilets at lunch and recess. We make sure that we tell them you go at lunch and recess. So then you come in within 10 minutes, I've got someone saying, can I please go to the toilet? So it definitely is a question that I get a lot. We are getting better though, but at the beginning of the year, we go on multiple toilet trips throughout the day.
That sounds like great fun. How important is having patience to doing what you do? I mean, were you patient before? I mean, you have to be patient now. I have to imagine you couldn't possibly be an impatient kindergarten teacher. That would not work well. So how important is patience, and has that actually developed as your teaching career has gone along?
Patience is definitely something that you need, not just as a kindergarten teacher, but as any teacher, but definitely with kindergarten because they are so young. They're learning things for the first time, not just patience in terms of everyday things where you think they should be able to do it in terms of tying up shoelaces, packing things in their bags, but then you also need to have the patience when it comes to them learning because they are learning to read and write from the beginning and you're trying to teach them that skill that you need to have patience there. I think that I have always been quite a patient person when it comes to kids. I've always enjoyed being around kids. I did dance teaching, so I've kind of been in a profession where I was working with kids prior to being a teacher. And I suppose that's kind of where my passion came for to work with kids, but it definitely is something that you need. I definitely would have developed a little bit more patience. I think if you don't have patience, your day is going to be very exhausting and it would be really hard if you're just not kind of being patient and realizing that that is a part of the job and it'll be better for everyone in the end if you do have a bit of patience. Some days it is hard to have patience, but you try your best. And at the end of the day, you just remember that you're human, they're human, we all have feelings. We're all trying to learn new things. So I think you've just got to try and remember that.
I'm curious, did you pick to be a kindergarten teacher? I didn't get along that far in the education. So how does it work? Do you get to pick, I want to teach kindergarten or I want to teach year 6? Or do you get the general teacher education and then they say, well, we need a kindergarten teacher. Here's Alecia. There you go.
Yeah, so the way that it works is when you go to university, you can either choose to do a primary teaching degree, which means you will be working in kindergarten to year 6, or you can choose to do your secondary teaching degree, which is year 7 to 12. So when you go into your primary teaching degree, you do some practical experience and an internship. I was able to have a practical experience in a year 1-2 class, a 5-6 class, and then my internship, which was a whole term, so 10 weeks. I did that in a kindergarten class at the school that I'm currently at now. And I really loved working with the younger kids. My first year out of teaching, I did a lot of casual work on years 3, 4, 5, and 6. The content side of that is really enjoyable, and I do enjoy being able to do lots of things with the older kids because they have developed skills over a period of time.
Sure.
I didn't so much enjoy the side when it came to behavior, and sometimes their attitude and their respect makes it really hard. And it's not all kids, it's not at all schools, but that is a really hard part of teaching the older years, even though they still are so young. I find that quite a challenge and quite exhausting and draining. And obviously kindergarten has its own areas where it's exhausting and draining, but I just feel like that I connect better with the younger ones. I enjoy being around with the younger ones. So the way that it kind of worked is I did do teaching across the board from kindergarten to year 6, and then I got offered the position that I have now, which was on kindergarten, and that's where I've stayed. I would definitely prefer to stay on the infant side. I just really enjoy working with the younger kids, and you can see so much growth. And you see that when they're older as well, but to kind of see through a first year of school where they begin and where they end, there's so much growth there that you get to kind of see and experience.
It's interesting. We all sort of have our natural sort of age range that we seem to work best with, and then sometimes other people absolutely despise, I don't know, that's too strong a word, but despise the age range we're working with, and they're like, how could you possibly work with them? You're crazy. But then you look at it the other way around. I was okay working with the really, really young ones, but I sometimes found it quite frustrating because you're literally teaching them everything about the world. So even giving them a simple instruction, well, when you think about it, it's not simple when you're
No.
5 or 6 years old. So I enjoyed working with more so the teenage range, which a lot of people were like, are you crazy? How can you deal with that? But I enjoyed it. Can I ask, what's the best part? I know this is a very cliche question, but what's the best part about what you do? And I'm not going to ask what's the worst part, but what's the most challenging part of what you do?
I think the best part about what I do is being able to have an impact on so many children. And I know it's a cliche thing to say, but children are our future. They're the generation that is coming through, and to be able to have an impact in their life, whether it is that I've taught them a skill that they've learned, or I've just been there for them in a moment when they needed someone, because we have lots of different roles. It's not just teacher. Sometimes it might be mum, sometimes it might be nurse, putting on band-aids. So we play lots of roles. So I think just being able to have the impact on children, and being able to kind of see them grow and develop is just something that I really love about the job. The most challenging part, I think some days when you obviously you're going to get kids that have behaviors, or they might have special needs, and you do everything that you can in your classroom to try and cater for that, and you differentiate your learning, and you come up with all these strategies. And I think sometimes that can be quite challenging. You can try lots of different things and then feel like it's still not working, and you kind of can get to a point where you go, what do I do now? What do I do next? Like, how can I support this child and help them? Because I know that it's hard for them as well, and we're trying to work together, but I think that that can be quite challenging sometimes.
How much work goes on behind the scenes? And I just ask again because a lot of people, I don't think, understand or appreciate that it's not just the classroom hours. There's stuff that actually goes on in terms of prep. I mean, probably not marking tests for yourself, but I know from my own teaching experience and having interviewed several teachers that it's not just the face-to-face hours. There is a considerable amount of work that goes on behind the scenes that not everyone sees. So how much work goes on for yourself outside of the classroom face-to-face?
And I think too, I think some people kind of see our working hours of 9 to 3, or whatever your schooling hours are, those 6 hours. And during those 6 hours, we've got the students with us for that whole 6 hours. So everything that we're doing in that time is just the physical teaching, being in front of them in the classroom. But leading up to that, all the activities have to be prepped. We have to have programs that we need to do. There might be, for that day, there might be a student that you have and you're trying a new strategy with them to help manage them. And then if you do have students that have special needs or behavior, and outside of that, because they might be going to get support outside of schooling to then help them there, there's checklists that we have to do, there's forms we have to fill out, and then you have any assessment that you have to do and data that you need to report. We have to do data every 5 weeks. And then we've just finished our report writing. So reports have just came out. So term 2 and term 4 is report writing time. And you've got 20 students. I have 20. The older years, they can have up to 30 kids. You've got to write comments for all of them. You've got to do assessment. So I think that there's all of that when you think, if you're in front of the kids for those 6 hours, when do you have the time to do all of that extra stuff, which is still such a big part of teaching? Like, the face-to-face bit is such a small part of the job. So when are you going to do all this other work? Well, the only time that we have to do that is either before work, after work, during our breaks at work, or in our holidays or weekends.
I think the part that a lot of people don't realize unless they've worked with kids themselves is, okay, maybe the face-to-face is only, in inverted commas, 6 hours, but anyone who's tried to work with 25 years old, like, 25-year-olds. That's not a normal 6 hours. When I was working as a tennis coach, I had teenagers come in basically for work experience and, give them a group of 8 5-year-olds with a tennis racket, and they work for 6 hours. And by the end of it, some of them were so exhausted, they were passed out on the floor, the teenagers. Is that a part that surprised you, or is that a part that you took to it like a duck to water, in terms of, because you already alluded to the fact you have many different roles. One of the things I found working with young kids, or just kids in general, it's the emotional, like, you have to put energy in. You cannot just turn up like a desk job, think everything is just, you go by the numbers, because the kids will run riot over you. So you always have to show up as the best version of yourself, at least try to. You have to put energy. For kindergartners, I'm assuming you have to put enthusiasm in, because it's not going to go well if you're a boring kindergarten teacher. So just in terms of the emotional energy that it takes dealing with the age group that you do, did you find that a surprise? Was that something that, you took to very easily? And is that something you had to build up over the years?
I wasn't so much surprised by that being a part of the job. I think I kind of took to that side of it quite easy, in terms of kind of knowing already what it was going to be. Like, I have some other educators in the family, so hearing things from them,
Right.
but also have been obviously not working for as long period of time, but working with children before with dancing, and kind of, you have to have the same type of energy. And definitely with kindergarten, you do have to be enthusiastic as much as you can, have that high energy, and you've got to be on all the time. Even if you're having a bad day, you have to try not let that impact, because that's going to then feed into the kids, and they're going to know that you're having a bad day, and that kind of makes it a little bit tough. So I definitely wasn't surprised by it. I kind of knew that that was a part of the job. It definitely is a challenge. Some days are really tough. I find the toughest days are the days when the students, for whatever reason, it could be that it's raining and they're inside all day. It could be that it's windy. It could be that they had a big weekend, and then they come, and it's really hard for them that day to listen, to do their activities, to follow instructions. And you'll have most of them doing the right thing, and then one of them will set the rest of them off. And so I find that those days are the most exhausting, because you get to a point with them and you're kind of like, you're not listening to me. I can't do my job. Like, what do I do? And those days I find are the most exhausting, and you do have to try and show up for them. And when you aren't, and I know some days, if I feel like that I haven't done my best, I find that really hard to kind of think back and be like, oh, like, today I didn't do the best that I could do, and that's going to impact them. And I kind of think about, well, if they got kindergarten, they're only in kindergarten for 1 year, and one of those days that I've with them, like, I haven't given them my best. So, like, I kind of feel sometimes guilty about that. So I think that can be a challenge, and it is quite exhausting emotionally as well, especially if the kids have lots of high emotions that day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand that to a degree. And it's funny, you mentioned the rainy days and the windy days. For me, for some reason, the wind makes the kids go crazy. Rain is one thing, but wind, I don't know if you've noticed, wind starts blowing and the kids go absolutely manic. Is that something that was just for me, or did you find the same too?
I really don't know what it is, but the wind starts and it's just like, we might as well just all pack up and go home, because I don't know what it is. I don't know how it impacts them, but wind, and they're just like, it's not a good time.
Well, hang on. You said before we jumped on live that you had quite a windy day today. So what were the kids like? So what was the kids like today? I mean, it's Friday. It's the end of a week. Yes. It's cold and it was windy. So has this week been one of those pushing the limits kind of weeks?
I think today, like, it got windy towards the end of the day, and being our Friday, which is we call it our Friday day. Yeah. We're all excited when it gets to Friday, but Friday is a little bit more fun, a bit more relaxed. If it was on one of our other days where we were doing a bit more intense learning, it might have been a bit more of a challenge. We definitely have those days with the wind, especially if it's consecutive windy days.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the rainy days, because they can't go outside and they're inside, you put a bunch of 25-year-olds inside and they can't go outside to burn off any energy. And you can kind of think what's going to happen there.
Oh, I don't need to think. I know from experience. My kids had tennis rackets as well, which made it a lot worse.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say worse because at least they were out on the court. They weren't in a classroom. Did you have the same issues with sugar? That's the one thing also when the parents would send their kids in and they would have like cups of cordial or red sugar or red like lolly strips. The sugar would just send them absolutely manic. Do you have any issues with that as well?
I'm not sure if I have too many issues in terms of sugar. A lot of the students at our school, well, in my class, you look at their lunch boxes, and lunch boxes today, they've got such a variety. There's lots of fruit,
Oh,
they
okay.
have their sandwich, like it's a lot different. Like I feel like there's not as many packet things as what there was when
Oh,
I
wow. Okay.
went to school. So I feel
Yeah.
like their lunch boxes are definitely a little bit different to when I went to school. They still have those sugary snacks in there, but
Yeah.
I feel like that it doesn't really impact them too much. And our canteen that we have, we're quite a healthy canteen, so we don't
Okay.
really have any sugary drinks that's kind of going to set them off. We kind of stick to and encourage a more healthy approach, more food that's going to give us energy for a long time, not a short
Mhm.
period of time.
I mean, that sounds amazing. It just doesn't sound at all like what I went through when I was in school. Our tuck shop was Ovaltinis, chocolate milk,
Yeah,
lollies, and it wasn't any of that healthy stuff. So I want to get into obviously the pageantry and in terms of your Miss Grand Australia journey, working with Destiny Rescue. I want to get your insights on it because you work with kids, and then Destiny Rescue works with kids, but in a much different and quite darker and sinister way. But in terms of your pageantry journey, would you like to recount for the audience how if you can remember, because it started quite a while ago, how did you get into pageantry to begin with, and what has kept you going for what I think is like an 8 or 9 year career?
Mhm. I have been dancing since I was 5 on stage. I've always enjoyed being on stage. So I think the initial draw for me was that component of it. I think I was 16 maybe, and my mum, with my dancing, she was like, "Oh, do you want to try a bit of modeling?" I kind of entered like a modeling kind of contest. And
Hmm.
then it kind of just progressed from there. I really enjoyed doing the catwalk, and not just that part of it as well, but the different things I was learning along the way. You obviously have the interview part of pageants, which is really good experience and meeting new people. So I think I just, as much as I loved the stage part, and that was kind of the bit that drew me to it, I really enjoyed the experiences that I was getting on that side as well. I feel like that it grew my confidence a lot.
Hmm.
I would kind of say that I was a bit more shy when I was in school, especially kind of high school. And then I kind of did drama to help bring me out of my comfort zone. And then I think going into pageantry has kind of helped with that as well, because you're in so many different experiences where you have to be confident and you're kind of put outside of your comfort zone. So I think that has definitely been something that I've really enjoyed about pageantry and experiencing. It
Hmm.
definitely has been a long journey. I have competed in a few different pageant systems. I did represent Australia in 2015-16 in Miss Tourism World. And then I did represent Australia again in Miss Supranational in 2017. Both of those experiences were amazing. I learned so much. I really enjoyed being able to go to other countries and interact with girls from all over the world and experience what their life was like, and being able to kind of share my life as
Mm.
well and what it was like in our country. And the obviously the on stage part of it, like having the opening numbers and the dances, is all stuff that I really enjoyed and looked forward to, while also developing those skills in the background when it came to interview and talking
Mm.
on stage and answering questions. And I think what has kind of kept me going, I have had a couple of breaks here and there because
Yeah.
it is a lot. You do put a lot in to pageants. So I kind of had some breaks at different times just to kind of focus on myself and my career in teaching. And then I did compete a couple of years ago. I did compete in Miss Grand Australia. I really enjoyed my experience with Miss Grand Australia. I really enjoy what the pageant system stands for. And I had a little break since then. And I've always wanted to come back and give it another go because I enjoyed it so much. And I would love the opportunity to represent Australia again in Miss Grand. It's definitely one of the pageant systems that I've been the most that I've looked forward to the most in being able to do and be a part of that. So I've come back to do that. I definitely, the years when I'm not doing a pageant because I have a bit of a break, I kind of see everything happening on social media, and a part of me is like, oh, like I enjoy it so much.
FOMO.
And then yeah, and I because I know how much I love it when I'm doing it, and the experiences that I get out of it, and how much I grow, and the people that I get to meet, that when it comes around every year and it's pageant season, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have,
should have entered.
So I definitely but I've definitely enjoyed the time off as well, because I feel like that in that time I've grown a lot in myself. I've experienced more things, I've met more people, and that all kind of builds up to kind of growing into the person that you want to become or are becoming. And I think that now that I am a little bit older, I've experienced some more things, I've competed in a few different pageant systems, I've had the experience internationally. I think I've kind of built up to a place where, even though I was ready back then, I'm like more ready now that I've kind of had that time to grow and develop. And I definitely am excited to be competing in Miss Grand Australia again, and being able to give it everything that I have and using everything that I've learnt along the way.
I mean, you've had an incredible career here in Australian pageantry, and your career has been, you've been in pageantry longer than I have. I think I started about 2017.
Yes.
So what I'm just curious about for yourself is, how have you seen Australian pageantry evolve over those years? I've asked this of, United States-based people, UK-based people, but I've rarely had the chance to speak to someone in Australia who's been in Australian pageantry as long as you have. I mean, one of my first interviews was Tasha Ross. Tasha was competing back when I started, but she stopped several years ago. You've always been a name that I've recognised. So I'm just curious, from your point of view, how has Australian pageantry changed and evolved over the last 8 or 9 years?
I think one of the biggest things that I've kind of see change and be a part of it is, obviously over that time with technology and social media has developed so much, that I definitely, compared to when I first started, there was always that aspect there when it came to social media and sponsors and kind of having that. But I feel like over the time it's definitely progressed more and is more of a thing that we have in pageants now, where we have our sponsors and we're promoting on social media. So I think that that's something that has changed and progressed quite a lot. You look at today with TikTok and people being content creators, and like, I don't know, content creating wasn't a massive thing when I first started pageantry, but now like there's young kids that's what they want to be. And so I think that that's been a thing that's changed a bit in the time that I've kind of gone through. And for me, I've kind of like, I enjoy social media and I use social media. During that time, I've had to use it at different times and kind of grow in certain aspects of it. And I do probably find that the most challenging part, and I think keeping up with everything to do with that. And but I think it's been kind of like a good thing that's kind of happened as well, because it gives people a platform where they can reach more people, especially when you have your pageants that are linked to charities, and you can use that platform to create awareness and raise funds, and you can kind of use that. But I think that that is probably the biggest thing for me that I've kind of see change in terms of that aspect of it, and having that be a part of it now, and quite an important part. And I think it's a good thing to kind of have that platform. I think with some other things, I think just the way, like, I feel like the focus a little bit now is a lot more about who the person is and who they're about and what kind of
Yeah.
inspires them. And I think that's even more of a focus now than what it was
Yeah.
before. It definitely was, but I think that's kind of definitely more of a focus now is who is this person? Like, what do they represent? What are they passionate about? And I think that that's a really good thing that
Mm-hmm.
you get to do a lot more where you get to kind of talk about yourself and what you're passionate about.
So in term, and I agree with what you said. In terms of your own growth over that same period, um, what parts of you? Obviously, I'm going to ask what parts of you have changed, how have you grown? But I think equally importantly, I'm interested to know what parts of you have stayed the same. Because I mean, people talk about growing in pageantry all the same, but I think there are some parts of you that quintessentially, would just stay as core who you are. And I'm also interested to ask you about how the internationals view us Aussies, because I know from interviewing a lot of overseas people, we have a particular persona. They see us as laid back and all these other sorts of things. But I mean, just to keep it simple, first, how have you grown over your journey, and how much of that has been due to pageantry, and so how much of that has just been, well, over those years, everyone has grown?
I think the biggest thing for me that I mentioned before as well is one thing that pageantry helped with me was definitely my confidence.
Hmm.
And I think that that was also something that was really beneficial to my profession as a teacher.
Mm.
And having the experiences where you have to walk into a room of people that you may not know and you have to have conversations with them and talk about yourself and things that you're passionate about. I think that that's definitely an area where I definitely have over time changed and I've grown and I've become more confident and comfortable in those situations. I definitely think that I've kind of grown a bit and with my knowledge in the social media aspect
Hmm.
of things and just kind of understanding that a little bit more. I think one thing for me that has stayed the same is for me, as much as I've kind of built on the skill that I already have and always improving in that area, I think something that for me that's always stayed the same is my on-stage presence and my
Hmm.
walk. Like, even though I've improved it in little areas, I feel like that's something that's always kind of been me and having fun on stage. I think that that's something that I've always had with me that I've kept carrying through.
So imagine for yourself, opening number is a walk in the park.
I think that it's lots of fun. It is nerve wracking because you are in front of a
Okay.
bunch of people, but it definitely is. I really enjoy it because it has that dance aspect, which I've
Yeah.
been doing for a long time. So I definitely love performing and being on stage. And I think having that background helps in the way that when you do compete and especially
Mm.
compete internationally, there's a lot of choreography that you have to learn. And I think coming
Yeah.
from that background, it definitely is very helpful to kind of being in a situation before where you've had to remember lots of choreography and then perform it in like short
Mm.
periods of time.
It's just funny to me because you guys seem to be one or the other. There are some who have two left feet, and then there are others who just they come alive when they're on stage. And obviously, Grand internationally has a huge part of it is that stage presence, perhaps more so than any of the other major pageants, maybe the exception being Universe. But it's interesting. We're talking to you. I don't know if you've always had this ability, but I certainly feel like I'm speaking to someone who's had experience in pageantry, because just the way you answer the interview and you can actually remember separate questions I've asked and then you're able to circle back to them. See, most people don't have that ability. That's why I try to only ask one question at a time, because otherwise I forget and it gets complicated. But that ability that you just showed, I mean, you are experienced, and I don't know whether that has come from that's a skill you always had. You interviewed well. That's something you developed. But just in terms of the experience, because one of the questions I always ask in interview is like, basically, why should we send you, or why should we
Yes.
pick you over everyone else? And I just want to ask, how important do you think it is to send someone overseas representing our country who's actually had a bit of the international experience before, so they kind of know, rather than sending, I mean, you can always send someone new, sometimes we have to, but how important do you think the experience is that you bring to the table?
I think it's really important because when you go over there, and it is such an important thing that you're going over for, you're representing your country, you're representing the pageant system that you're with. I think having that experience, because until you're in that situation
Yeah.
and you're somewhere for, when I went to Poland, it was 4 weeks. And that's
Oh
4 weeks
wow.
of every, like the period that I was over there. I
Jeez.
think the pageant was probably about 3 weeks.
That's still a long one. That's still
Yeah.
long.
And like every time that you walk out of that door of your room, like you've got to be ready.
Yeah.
You're going to be, people are everywhere. People are looking all the time. You'll have pageant bloggers that'll be in the lobby of somewhere ready to do interviews. You've got all the sightseeing experiences that you go on. You're interacting with fans and people all the time when you go out to different places. They all know that you're there,
Mm.
so they're definitely going to be at the places that you're going to. And then you have your long rehearsals that you
Oh
have,
yeah.
plus just interacting with the girls over breakfast and lunch and dinner. And then you have obviously the competition parts of it when you have your interview and preliminary rounds, and some might have a
Mm.
talent section as well. And then you have the final night show. And I think until you've kind of experienced what that's like, I think it's kind of hard to kind of fully understand what you're
Yeah.
kind of getting yourself into. And I think that it's really important to have that experience. Not saying that someone that hasn't isn't able to or wouldn't do
Of
amazing.
course.
I
Yeah.
just think that it is important. I kind of always think of it in the way of that if you were to go for a job interview and you had two people that on paper they had the same skills, they're all the same there, but then you had one person that has had experience in the area
Yeah.
and then you have someone that hasn't, most of the time the employees are going to go for the person that has the experience
Yeah.
and they can use that. So I kind of see it in that way that, if you were going for a job interview, experience is valued
Mm.
almost more than the credentials, because there's some things that you can't learn without experience.
100%.
And I think that that's something that's important to take in mind when pageant systems are sending girls over to compete
Yeah.
internationally. And I think too, until you kind of go over there and you talk to the other girls and they kind of tell you what it's like in their country when it is for pageants. And I know in some countries, like for them, it's the way for them to have a better life for
Yeah.
themselves and their families. And when you're going over there competing against girls that are coming with that type of determination because it's going to better their life,
Mm.
you need to be going over there with almost the same determination, because
Yeah.
that's what you're going to
Yeah.
be competing against. So I think that that's really important.
Was that a lot of people? Actually, I don't know the math. I don't want to misspeak. But out of the people competing at Miss Grand Australia, I know you have international experience. Obviously, Michaela Fowler has international experience outside of Brooke, or also has international experience. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of, let's say, people who haven't represented our country overseas yet. And I'm with you. Like experience, if everything else is equal, experience in my book is obviously a huge positive, because you can't learn everything from reading, no matter how much you might want to. There's something different about going over there. But if I can take you back to the first time, not necessarily the first time you represented our country overseas, but the first time you had that moment where you're a young girl, you're representing our country, and you realize that Australian pageantry, in terms of its size, is nothing compared
Yeah.
to Filipino pageantry, Venezuelan pageantry. I remember people at university telling me they would take out their own bags from the plane, and you'd see Miss Venezuela, and she's got 8 porters with 2 suitcases each. Do you remember that first time when you went, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And just realizing that as big as you might think you are in Australia, pageantry in other countries is literally, as you said, it's almost life or death. Do you remember that moment?
I think I remember like experiencing a little bit of it when I went for Miss Tourism World. It was a smaller pageant. I think there might have been 50 girls altogether, which is still quite a lot.
It's big. Yeah, it's
But
still
I,
big.
yeah, but I think when I went for Miss Supranational, which I think was about 80 or so
Mm,
girls, and yeah, that was definitely kind of like a little bit of a different experience. It felt like it was a bit more than my previous experience, and it was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, like it felt for me like it was more serious, and the girls that I was competing against they were really there for,
Mm.
to win, and that's what they were coming there to do. And that can be quite overwhelming at first, and being in another country that you might not be familiar with, being away from your family for a long period of time, who's your support system, and then the people that you are relying on for support are your competitors. And I
Yeah.
think that that's definitely something that can be quite overwhelming at first. But I also, when I experienced that, that was my first time experience it. So I also understand that people can't experience it without being given the opportunity
Of
to
course.
experience it. But yeah, it definitely can be a lot at first when the other girls do kind of share their stories and how they got to where they were, and they talk about how the pageant kind of runs in their country, and then you kind of think
Mm.
back to how it runs here. And I think the biggest thing is too is when you go over to another country for an international pageant and you see all the fans, and they're not necessarily
Mm.
fan, like they're normally predominantly fans from a particular country, but they're fans of
Yeah.
everyone in the
Yeah.
pageant. Like I think that's a lot when you have so many people coming up to you and they want to take photos, and they're at different events with things. And I think like we don't really get to experience that
No.
here because it's not really a part of our
Mm.
society in Australia. One thing that with pageants that I kind of like to expose people to is what it really is, because I know people have a preconceived idea on pageants and the people that do pageants. So I
Yeah.
think being able to have the opportunity to expose more people to what it actually is, I think is really important. But like I said, you don't get to experience that level here. But when you go over there, you kind of see, wow, like it actually is quite a big industry, as it may not be as
Mm.
big for us here. It is for a lot of people in a lot of other countries.
Have you ever been recognized on the street here because of your pageantry?
Unless it was by a random person, I'm going to say no. I don't think I've ever been recognized by anyone as either of
Right.
my titles. Which is like, it's kind of like a good thing in a way that people aren't recognizing you in your
Sure.
case, but it's
Yeah.
always, it kind of also shows you is it's like, oh, like I'm like recognized by people that are from another country, but
Mm.
in my own
Yeah.
country, it's like it doesn't really, like it feels like it almost doesn't really mean anything, even though you are going over and you're representing your country, which is
Yeah.
still an important thing that you're doing. And people get to represent Australia and their countries in lots of different things.
Mm.
And pageantry is another one of them, which people I just don't think know enough about or aren't as interested in it. So yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken to not even state title holders, but over in America, particularly the southern areas of America, where pageantry is part of their DNA, and it's not unusual for someone who's a state title holder to be mugged when they're out for lunch for autographs and endless signings and things like that, which I've not really seen here in Australia, unless like you're maybe Miss Universe, and even then,
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite to the same degree. This is just a question I'm interested to get your opinion on. Do you think we'll ever get to the point in Australia where pageantry will approximate something like that size? I have all sorts of ideas in my head as to maybe why pageantry isn't so big here. I think one of the things really is where we're known as, Australia being very, we have the tall poppy syndrome, which to me, like literally, if you stand out, we're going to cut you down, which in some ways is opposite to pageantry, where you do want to show yourself in the best light. But do you ever see pageantry in Australia growing to be like a comparable size to the United States or Venezuela or the Philippines or places like that?
I'm not sure if I can see it growing to that size. Would I love to see it grow to that size? 100%, because I do think that pageantry is really valuable and you can learn a lot from it. I'm just not sure if we have the support here
Mm.
to get it to that size. I think that Australia, we're definitely seen as a very sporty country. We
Yeah.
have lots of really great sporting teams. And I think that I'm not quite sure if we kind of have the support and just people kind of knowing about it or being interested in it. And then I also kind of think too, like I know with some of the other countries, the pageant system over there is supported by their government
Oh
as
wow,
well.
okay.
Like, so I'm just not sure if we're ever going to really get to that stage where we're going to be able to be on the same scale when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm of a mind of like yourself. I think it's going to be us Aussies doing it tough for the foreseeable future. Anyway, talk to me about Miss Grand Australia in particular. So this is your second time through. You've already said that you really enjoyed your first time through. What are the aspects that you've enjoyed sort of coming back to pageantry? I mean, this year after like a couple of years break. And we've mentioned already Destiny Rescue, which works to end the sex trafficking trade predominantly in Southeast Asia. And then obviously you work with young children as well. But what have been the aspects that you've really enjoyed coming back to Miss Grand Australia after a brief hiatus?
I think starting with the first thing that I definitely enjoyed, which you just mentioned, is I have enjoyed being able to raise awareness and funds for Destiny Rescue again, because when I competed before, Miss Grand Australia was working with Destiny Rescue, and I really connected to what their purpose is then, and
Mm,
I was really looking forward to be able to have that opportunity again, especially because I worked with children a little
yeah,
bit more now than what I had then, and kind of seeing how important children having a safe, loving home, having an education is. So being able to connect with that charity again and being able to raise funds and awareness has been something that I've really enjoyed doing again and having that opportunity. I've really enjoyed coming back and being a part of. I really enjoyed like the preparation of pageantry,
hmm,
just the training, the catwalk, getting outfits organized, kind of practice for your interview, like question stage. I really enjoyed being kind of in that zone again and doing all of that. I feel like that apart from my career and my profession being like a purpose for me, it kind of gives me another purpose that I'm
yeah,
working for, which I really enjoy. I really enjoy being able to meet new people because that's one thing that you get to do with pageantry and connect
mm,
with lots of different girls, which I love getting to know new people and being able to see some same faces that you've seen
yeah,
before is also really good as well. Being able to catch up with people that you haven't seen in a little while, but then also getting to meet new people. I think being able to work with new brands, but also some brands that you may have worked with before. I really
yeah,
enjoyed being able to do that again. And I have enjoyed the social media side of things and being able to get creative and try some different things that I kind of wasn't trying before and putting a little bit more time and having more time
mm,
because obviously with teaching we don't have nights or weekends, even though sometimes we do some work, but being able to have that time where I'm able to kind of put 100% into that aspect of things. I've really enjoyed being able to come back and do that, and I'm definitely looking forward to National Finals Week in Melbourne. It can't come quick enough. I'm very excited to be in that pageant realm again for a couple of days. As exhausting as it is, I am looking forward to every single part of it. Even if I'm lucky enough to make the top five and answer a question and answer, I'm even looking forward to experiencing that again because that's an experience sometimes in itself.
Wouldn't it be better if it was held in Sydney, though, Alicia?
Or it
It's
might
okay. You
be
don't
a
have to answer
fraction,
that.
it might be a fraction warmer,
Oh
but
God, yeah,
I do really like Melbourne. I've been to Melbourne a few
me too.
times.
Yeah,
I am looking forward to, I've been to Melbourne for a little bit, so I'm looking forward to being able to go back down to Melbourne again.
I just got to get the boot in whenever I can, and hopefully you don't have an earthquake when you. They've had two earthquakes in the last 2 years. I have
No.
no idea what's going on down there. Um, does preparation at this stage feel easier? Is it smoother? I mean, for want of a better term, you're a pageant veteran. You know how this goes. You know how sometimes you can have hiccups, and it's just part and parcel of the preparation, as far as I'm concerned. And if you're a bit greener under the years, or you're a newbie and the gown doesn't show up when you thought it should, then you can panic and it's the end of the world. At your stage of your career, the pageant career anyway, is it a bit easier just to take it in your stride and look for the good in it and not get so frazzled when it doesn't go exactly according to plan?
I think it's a bit easier in the way that you kind of know what you're getting yourself into, you know what you're going to be required to do, and you've experienced it before. I know that when girls that might be prepping for a pageant for their first time, the interview portion can be quite nerve-wracking and not really knowing what to expect, and the question and answer, because I'm sure everyone has seen videos on YouTube of some really interesting questions and girls answering them maybe maybe not the best. But I also think too, until you're in that situation, you can't really fully understand what it's like, and you can't really judge too much.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that is easy for me because I've experienced. I know what it feels like. I kind of know what I need to do to prepare. And I think too, having done pageantry for so long, like you said, you do get those hiccups along the way, and just knowing that to kind of keep calm, that you kind of like go with the flow and be flexible as you go, because it's not going to go exactly how you had to plan. I think that kind of being through that and being able to do that on the go is something that might be a little bit easier, and to kind of just expect the unexpected sometimes. And I think just the getting up, doing your makeup and the late nights is something in itself that takes a bit to get used to. Being in heels all day, they're all kind of things that if you've experienced them before, you kind of know what it's going to be like. So I think in terms of the knowing of it's going to be like is a little bit easier. I think it can still be like prepping can still be hard at times, especially because I haven't done it for a little bit. Kind of like refreshing myself on everything is something that even I have done it before, I still have to prep myself just as much as someone that hasn't done it before, to brush up and touch up on the skills that you have learnt along the way.
Do you feel in a way that you almost have more expectation on yourself because you know you've had a long career, you know that you kind of know what you're doing by this stage, and you know you've done well in the past? I mean, you've represented Australia twice on the international stage. So does that add a little bit of extra pressure on you?
I feel like there is a little bit of extra pressure on myself that I put on to myself, but also knowing I have been in lots of situations where I haven't made it through, I haven't won, and I know what that feels like when you've put in all the time and the effort. And I think like remembering that, you know, there's 30 girls, only one girl is going to win. That's the reality of it. And everyone's putting in all this effort. I think you kind of, even though you go in confident and you're going in with knowing that you've prepped and you've been ready, I think it's like a small part. I always try and remember that, you know, as long as each step of the way I've done everything that I could to be the best version of myself and present myself in the best way, that when it comes down to it, if the decision isn't in my favor, I can walk away from that experience knowing that I did everything that I could. So I think that that's something really important. But I kind of try and remember that for myself, so I don't get, when it comes to that point, if it isn't the outcome that I want, I'm not too hard on myself, and I know that I've given it everything that I could.
Well, that's a voice of experience speaking right there. Alecia, you seem very level-headed, and it would be tough to frazzle you. Probably all the exposure to 5-year-olds will do that to you. I'm just curious, I don't know if you thought this far ahead, but Miss Grand internationally, when the girls introduce themselves, it's not known for doing it in a particularly level-headed way. It's almost the opposite of seeing how extravagant you can be. Have you given any thought to how you would introduce yourself on the international stage? And I asked Miss Grand Paraguay this. I'm hoping you don't have any nightmares from Miss Universe France and doing something similar to that, because she was the most watched video on the planet for a while after she introduced herself as France, and I think most of us have seen that. But have you given any thought to how you would introduce yourself as Miss Grand Australia on the international stage?
Well, I actually recently have gone and looked back and found the footage that I could have when I've competed before, and when I did Miss Tourism World, I did have to walk up on the stage and say my country's name. I didn't have to do that in Miss Supranational. They kind of said our country's name and we kind of had to do a pose. So it was kind of like two different ways of doing it. But I definitely have gone back and looked at my video for that because I know that, as you said, the video, I know that went viral on TikTok and everyone was having a go at trying to recreate that. And I was like, oh, I found like, if I had that video earlier, I could have participated in that trend because I have, I have had my, you know, I'm from Australia moment on stage. I thought about it a little bit. I watched my previous video of what I did. I think that it's really important to be really enthusiastic and confident, kind of have something that's going to set you apart. But I also think that some thought needs to kind of go into exactly how you are going to do that. So I've thought about it a little bit. But I did. It's funny that you mentioned that because I only the other day was thinking about it and went and found my video of when I had to do that myself.
It's great, isn't it? We can find all our best moments and low moments on the internet equally. I will say about Miss Universe France, she took it very gracefully. She had a good laugh at herself. And I think that's something that that we really need in the world, the ability to laugh at ourselves. Alecia, just before we move to the final 10 questions, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for supporting you along your almost decade-long journey in this industry?
I think I would have to shout out to my family for sure. They have been my biggest supporters. When I first competed international, my mum, my dad, my sister, my brother, they all came over. They watched me compete. When I competed in Miss Supranational, my parents came over and they watched me compete in Poland. They've come to national finals. They've flown to Melbourne. They've gone to Queensland. They've come to Sydney. So I definitely would have to shout out to my family. My mum and my pop have come with me on multiple occasions when I've had to go to Sydney for workshops and all different things. So I definitely would not be where I am today without them. They are my biggest supporters and they've always supported me in this journey and helped me as much as they can. So they are definitely the people that I'm going to have to give a shout out to. Also, as well, along my pageantry journey, I have had the opportunity to fundraise and raise awareness for a range of charities. And being from a small kind of area, you're going back to the same people, you know, asking them to help you raise funds and spread awareness and come to your events. And I couldn't thank those people enough for showing up for me again and again. And normally a lot of those people are family and friends. So they're definitely the people that I have to give my biggest shout outs to.
When family and friends get involved, I like to say if you've had a 9-year pageant career, so have your parents and your grandparents. How does a conversation go when you say that you're entering a pageant again? Are they still as excited as they were at the beginning? Are they confused? Do they go, oh my God, here we go again? Like, I'm just curious as to what the reaction is like when you say that you're entering another pageant.
My parents definitely are encouraging of it. There was a few years there when every now and then I would have a bit of a break for a year and my mum would be like, well, why don't you do another one? Like my dad would be like, you can do that. Like, you know, you've got all these skills, like, you know, like do it. And I was like, oh no, I'll have a bit of a break. So they definitely encourage me like all the way. They're there with me all the way. So they definitely, I don't think they've ever been like, oh, you know, here we go again. We're going to get on this journey. I think they enjoy being on that journey with me because they kind of see how much I've grown and the experiences that I've gotten out of it. And they've got to experience that with me. And I think they also kind of see how much hard work I do put in and what I do have to offer, and they kind of want to see that kind of shown, and for other people to see that as well. So
yeah, it means a lot to have the supportive family unit behind you, doesn't it? Okay, let's get to these final 10 questions, Alecia. Number 1, what is your favorite word?
my favorite word, oh, off the top of my head, the first word that came to my head was the word kind, because one thing that I'm talking about all the time at school is to be kind. So that was just the first word that popped off the top of my head. So I'm going to have to say that for now, that's my favorite word.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh, least favorite word. Oh, I wouldn't say that it's a word, but there was a little bit of a trend that goes around that people do, and they will be like, have you heard when people go, can I get a hoy yeah? Have you heard that? And people like mimic it. Oh,
Yeah.
I can't.
I thought for a second you were going to say, can I go to the toilet?
No, oh, look, no, but like that is one thing that like the kids do as well. And I'm like, and the older kids, and I'm like, oh, it really, really bugs me. I'm like, can you not do that?
Oh, but you know that the worst thing you can do is tell the kids that it annoys
I know,
you.
do not. I'm
do not show weakness. It's like blood in a pool of sharks. Do not show any weakness, because you know exactly what they're going to say next. Okay.
Yes.
Number 3, in life, what gets you excited, or what turns you on?
I think what gets me excited in life, one thing that I do really enjoy, and that is like I love getting up every day and being able to go to a job that I love to do. That is something that excites me, and I'm very grateful that I'm in a job that I love to do, and I'm working in a profession that has such a big impact and contributes so much to society, that that's definitely something that every day I enjoy and excites me.
So that's what turns you on. Question 4, what turns you off?
Oh, what maybe doesn't make me excited for a day could be, I'm going to think maybe sometimes the weather. If I wake up and the weather isn't the best, maybe I'm not as excited. I know I woke up this morning and I saw that it was raining outside, and sometimes I get a little bit anxious when I've got to drive in the rain. So this morning when I woke up, it definitely straight away I was on the weather app to see when the rain was going to stop. So I wasn't driving in it.
I know that weather app very well, because I used to have to check it all the time for tennis coaching. I've given up with the weather forecast. That was hopeless. But I became an expert at reading like the weather patterns. I don't know if you have the bomb.gov.au, and you watch the rain going across, and you're like, okay, it's going to stop in 10 minutes. I can go now. And you become like an expert meteorologist, but I know that struggle. Number 5, what sound or noise do you love?
What sound or noise? Ooh. I think the noise or the sound that I enjoy, not so much a sound or a noise, but I really do enjoy walking into a space and hearing music or listening to music. I think that music, obviously, people use it for a whole bunch of reasons, but music has always been something that I've listened to for a long time with dancing. So I definitely enjoy when you can go into a space and you've got some music in the background for sure.
Did you go through the Baby Shark phase? You mentioned music, and I'm thinking kindergartners, and like, what turns you off? Baby Shark.
I did the Baby Shark just today with my kids.
It's still alive, is it? I was hoping it was long dead.
No, it's still alive. The Baby Shark and the Mummy Shark, and another one too is I'm a Gummy Bear. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I don't want to, because it's such an earworm. These things, you talk about music, they're masterfully written, because you hear it once and you can't get it out of your head for 5 years afterwards. I still have nightmares about do and Mummy Shark and like, oh my God. So yes, you did it just today. I'm amazed it's still a thing.
Yes, and you definitely get, obviously with kindergarten, you listen to lots of different songs, but they're very much child-based songs. There is some ones that you get stuck in your head. This afternoon I had banana meatball stuck in my head because one of the kids was singing it from earlier in the day.
Does it sometimes get hard to switch that off because you listen to like kids music the whole day? Is it sometimes difficult to listen to like other music because you just got the kids song stuck in your head?
I kind of like enjoy kids' music because I also have a niece, and when we get in the car, I'll say to her, "You can pick the music, and I will sing the nursery rhymes. I will sing the Disney songs."
Oh God.
I quite enjoy kids' music. I feel like that if I didn't enjoy it, it would make my job a little bit more harder.
So how often have you heard a Wiggles song, just out of interest?
Oh, Wiggles, not a whole bunch.
Really? I would
No,
have thought
there's
Wiggles
just
would be top of the playlist.
no, not Wiggles, just nursery rhymes in general or Frozen. Frozen
Oh,
soundtrack is a
Frozen.
big one.
Okay. All right. What about number 6? What sound or noise do you hate?
What sound or noise do I not like? Oh, one noise that was really hard for me to get used to is in my room. I have like a beauty fridge. You know, the
Okay.
like beauty fridges, the little
I've
fridges that
heard
people put
about
their
it. I've
skin.
never had
Yeah.
one. I've
Well,
had
it
it.
obviously has a white noise sound that plays constantly. That was really
Oh,
hard at the beginning to get used to, just hearing when you're trying to go to sleep. Is like a fridge sound.
what's so interesting about that is I can't fall asleep to silence. So I literally needed to buy a machine to make the white noise so I could go to
Well,
sleep.
just get a beauty fridge, and then that'll solve the problem.
It's true. I'll just have to find something to put in the beauty fridge. I don't have a very large regimen. Number 7, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Ooh, any one superpower. Think if I could have any one superpower, and I do think about this sometimes. I know people always toss up between, do I want to be able to fly or do I want
Hmm.
to be invisible?
Hmm.
I think for me, the superpower that I would like to have is I would love to be able to teleport
Hmm.
to different places. I love traveling. I've been to a few different places and countries. My least favorite part of traveling is flying. I really don't like flying, but I know that it's the only way to get there. So it's something I've done a lot of, but I definitely don't enjoy it. So if I could teleport to the places I'd like to go to, that would be amazing.
Just clarify for me, do you not like flying, or do you not like flying because you're from Australia and the shortest flight we can take is 24 hours? Because those two are very different problems. Like when people overseas moan, "Oh, I had a really long flight." How long was it? "Oh, it was 3 hours." I'm like, "What? Like what are you complaining about?" So is it you don't like the mechanics of flying, or you don't like the fact that to get anywhere we really have to fly at least 24 hours?
I think I don't really enjoy the whole process of flying. I can get a little bit anxious and start
Okay.
to worry. I really don't like turbulence. So I think it's the mechanics of the flying
Okay.
I don't love, and then that will obviously impact the fact that you've got to fly a long way.
Longer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Have you
so
ever
I
have you
could
ever
be on a short flight and I still get nervous.
have you ever jumped out of a plane? Because you've got skydiving right next to you.
Oh, I definitely will never jump
Okay.
out of a plane. That is not something that I see myself doing. I don't like getting on a plane, let alone jumping out of one. But I did bungee jump, and that was an
You
amazing
bungee jumped.
experience. I did bungee jump. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily it's because I'm scared of like little heights. Like I wouldn't jump out of a plane, like that would scare me, like that's quite high. But I did I did bungee jump, and that was an amazing experience. Very thrilling.
That's so interesting because I've skydived multiple times, but I don't want to bungee jump because I had the laser surgery done to my eyes. And I remember hearing horror stories about because they basically used a laser to carve off a bit of your eye, that if there's too much pressure on it, you get to the bottom and your eye is basically just like grapes. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, I'm never
Mm,
bungee jumping.
it
But
it
you're
can
happy doing that, but you don't want to skydive.
no, it can happen, and there's like a list of things that they kind of have on the thing that like, do you have this? I know when my dad did it when he was younger, he did it and then he came up and a blood vessel had burst in his eye.
Oh,
When he did it with me, only last year, I think it was.
All right.
That didn't happen. So yeah, I think it kind of, I don't know, I kind of like the idea that you jump off the bridge and then it's over and done within like 10 seconds. So it's quite a quick
Okay.
experience.
Skydiving doesn't take that long. I'm not going to tell you have to go, but it doesn't take that long either, because you fall quite quickly.
I might just
Anyway.
do the one in there. I might just do the one in the air tunnel. You know, the ones you can go in the air tunnels.
Yeah. That's good training for the real thing. Number 8, what job would you most like to attempt?
What job would I most like to attempt? Oh, so when I was younger, I did want to be a zookeeper because I love animals. And I know like teaching and working with kids and animals are two jobs people say do not do. And they're both the jobs that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a zookeeper when I was younger, but then I found out I'd have to do science and I didn't love science. But it is definitely a job that I'd love to try. I considered it there for a little bit after I got my teaching degree, whether I would go get a degree in wildlife and environmental conservation. I really enjoy animals and nature and learning about it. So I think that if there was a job that I could try, it would definitely be to be a zookeeper. And I know that you can go to the zoo in Sydney and you can be a zookeeper for a day. And that's definitely something that I would love to do. I would just like to avoid the spider milking room, if that is at all possible.
You might want to also avoid the lions that we accidentally let out from the enclosure.
Yes.
It was like a couple of months ago, it made international news. Of course, I exaggerated that. Oh, wild lions are roaming the streets of Sydney. I have to ask you this: what's your favorite animal? If you want to be a zookeeper, like, what's your favorite animal?
Oh, my favorite animal. I've always really loved koalas. And I went in once to like one of the experiences, and they were marmoset monkeys. So they're like little monkeys. They almost look like little rats, but they were like so cute, and like I love that experience. I don't know if I could pick like a favorite animal because I love meerkats, and there's just lots of animals that I love. I love pandas.
All the cute
Kind
ones.
of,
Have you
I'm
heard?
kind of like
Have you
a
heard?
big, fluffy, cute animal lover.
Have you heard the sounds that koalas make?
Oh, I've seen some scary
Yeah.
videos of some
That
koalas.
you might think they're cute, but when you hear the sound they make, you might change your mind. But just back up a sec. So you don't want to go to the spider milking room. Okay, that's a given. No one wants to see spiders milk.
No.
But as an Australian, how do you feel about spiders?
Oh, I don't love spiders. I don't love snakes. Yes, that is. I remember when I was over, I think it was in Miss Tourism World, we were sitting in a room in Malaysia, just I think we were just having a break. And on the TV, it was like a show, and it was like the top 10 most dangerous animals in the world. And like all of the top 10 were Australian animals. And I was like, oh my goodness. They're like, this is where you live. And I was like, yeah.
Sometimes the people overseas view Australia as everything is trying to kill you.
Everything
And
is
it's
trying
hard
to kill
hard
us.
to argue sometimes. But I mean, if you're overseas, like if you win Miss Grand Australia and you're overseas and you're over there with your sister queens and a spider is there, it is your patriotic duty to take out the flip-flop and beat it to death, isn't it? I mean, you can't leave that to anyone else. You'd put us to shame.
I feel like that maybe I'd have to, but I also feel like that maybe they'd expect me to like put it in a container and free it outside, but I don't know if I could do that. I try to, and my dad always says to me, they're all God's creatures, and and I was like, oh yeah, but they can go be God creatures somewhere else.
It's all well and good saying they're God's creatures until one lands on your hand or one lands on your face. I've had both experiences happen to me, and at that point, you're not thinking this is one of God's creatures. You're just thinking, get it off me, please. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Ooh, it's kind of hard to say. I've worked in hospitality. Is that a job that I would like to go back to? Maybe not. Yeah, I just think that has, and there's hospitality is such a big industry. And that's the industry that my sister's in, but I worked in hospitality for a few years, and I don't know if that's necessarily a job I could go back to. I think even though I have to deal with parents, I feel like dealing with customers when it comes to their food is kind of a different area.
Well, I mean, you can excuse kids for behaving like kids because they're kids. It's a bit harder to excuse adults behaving like kids because they should know better. So
and I think the hours too, and the late nights and the weekends, and I think that that's not something that I could ever kind of go back to doing, not having to do that anymore.
Final question, number 10. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
If heaven exists when I arrive there, I think what I would like God to say to me in particular is that I at least did something that was like good and contributed to society in a positive way, and that my kind of time here, I was able to make an impact on whether it's one person or one child or lots of people. I think that that would be something that I would like to hear.
Well, I'm sure you've impacted more than one life, certainly more than one child already through your work. But Alecia, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's okay. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed being able to have a conversation about a range of different things and kind of talk a bit more about my pageantry journey and my profession, and also people just getting to know me a little bit more. So thank you.
Yeah. And best of luck freezing your backside off down in Melbourne in what is it, 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Yes, very soon.
Getting close. All right, well, let's leave it there. Thanks to everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open, so if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there, and see you in the next video.